Republican Congresswoman Kat Cammack of the great state of Florida. We were told just to ignore what we knew we could see, but now we have some details and facts. I know you've read this. What really pops as maybe some top lines, some top headlines from this?
Well, good to see you, Harris. And yes, this is a stunning report that every American should be deeply concerned about. Think about this. There's 162 executive orders that were signed by Joe Biden or his auto pen. We're not sure which. And when the staff was brought before the committee to really decipher what happened during those 4 years, many of them pleaded the fifth. So we know that there was an absolute cover-up of his mental decline. We are still trying to decipher exactly the game of telephone. You heard Aisha's report right there about kind of how it worked. But then there's a lot of questions that remain unanswered, which is where AG Pam Bondi is going to have her hands full. With this report now complete, it goes to the AG, and we expect as Americans to have a full finding and consequences for this absolute cover-up of his decline, but then also for those individuals that abuse their power in using the auto pen. It's disgusting, and it's more than that, it's scary.
Those 162 executive orders, you say signed by Biden or auto pen, not sure which yet. I mean, there are some scientific ways to figure that out, and then you follow the trail that you mentioned, and that's when we're going to learn really who was pulling the levers in the White House, we hope. I said this earlier on Fox and Friends. There's a lot at stake, a lot, that we didn't know about former President Biden. What's at stake for the American people?
Well, I think that there's so much distrust in government today as a result of decades of things like this that continue to be uncovered. But this is just the icing on the cake. Americans deserve to know who was running the country when Biden couldn't. And it's clear. We see it. They tell us that it was a cheap fake when he's stumbling, getting lost in fields, losing his train of thought. Now, I am 10 weeks postpartum. I have an excuse as to why sometimes my brain turns off. But when you're in the commander-in-chief's seat, you are the most powerful man in the world. You have to be sharp. And we know that all of the people around him, including our Democrat colleagues, repeatedly said the man's sharper than he ever has been. Now, again, I'm 10 weeks postpartum. I don't need index cards with people's faces and names on that I've known for 10 plus years. He did. We know that there was a cover-up from all the way through the House of Representatives, the Senate, and of course the White House and every federal agency to ensure that the American people were never told the truth. The American people deserve the truth. Yeah. And that's why this report is so important. But more importantly, it's what AG Bondi does with it now that it's in her hands over at DOJ.
So there's another layer to this. And congratulations on the baby, by the way. A life, a beautiful life. The former president's White House doctor, Kevin O'Connor, was one of the committee's first witnesses. And in a letter to the D.C. Board of Medicine, Chairman Comer wrote, if Dr. O'Connor failed to meet his minimum standard of care to the president, intentionally misled the American public, or authored false health reports on President Biden, then the committee believes Dr. O'Connor should be barred from the practice of medicine in the District of Columbia. Here's how that testimony went in July.
I must respectfully decline to answer based on the physician-patient privilege and reliance on my right under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution, on my right under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution, on my right under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution, on my right under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution.
Your quick response.
Every single one of those individuals working in the White House took an oath to the United States Constitution to defend this country from enemies foreign and domestic. When you have people who are running roughshod over the Constitution and going rogue, that is a violation of their oath. Not only does he have his oath as a doctor, but he has an oath to the Constitution that he violated. It's shameful. The American people deserve answers.
Congresswoman Cammack, great to have you in focus, especially with this important news. Thank you.
Hey, everyone. I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kayleigh McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.